Keith. We'll move on to our last question. It comes from Double Animal Fries, who asks, folks often say build your credit card strategy around your existing travel habits. My experience has been more of a two-way street, as credit card rewards have enabled experiences I otherwise wouldn't have if I was just paying cash. So my travel habits are no longer what they were. How has your travel evolved or not since getting into credit cards, points and miles? We'll do a jump ball for this one, and I will go to RJ first.
So I don't necessarily think you should build it around your existing travel strategy. I do think you should build it around a reasonable travel strategy for you. And what I mean is if you're making 50,000 a year in a higher cost area, like being like, I'm gonna just stay at the Ritz-Carlton every time I travel, probably not realistic. Probably not. Just saying. Maybe you got a ton of work travel and can pull off points and do things, but probably not the most realistic. So being like, I want to stay at 3 stars and above, I want certain amenities when I travel. That can be reasonable, right? Like you can have certain standards that you want. All four of us have different incomes. We live in different parts of the country and we all have different standards, but we all have consistent standards for what we will stay at and what we won't. So I think figuring out what you want that standard to be that is reasonable and going more towards that direction. And as you mature in the credit card game, as you mature in just being more experienced at traveling, you can augment that, right? Like, I really thought Choice was going to work. And Choice is not a bad ecosystem. Like, it's a great credit card. The Choice Select is a great credit card. But for me, Hilton and IHG just became much easier for me to use the way that I travel. So for me, that was an augmentation, but I knew what standard I wanted, and then I figured out how to consistently have that. And I think that is more what people actually are talking about when they say build your credit card strategy around your travel habits is not necessarily your existing habits, but what standard you want when you travel. And then you're going to have one-offs, right? You're going to go to a place you've never been and you do want the Ritz-Carlton because it's your anniversary and you've been married for 10 years and your spouse has put up with you labeling credit cards in their wallet and they haven't smothered you with a pillow. You're going to go out a little bit. So you have those moments where you can go above that, but really it is very rare once you get to that place, you're going to go below it. Unless it's a family emergency, unless it's we thought we could do a road trip for 9 hours of driving and we can only do 6, and there is only this Howard Johnson on the side of the road. And I'm not even going to look at the reviews. I'm just going to pray that the bed bugs are kind to me tonight. You get to that moment, right? But I think going to where you want to be at a reasonable level for income, location, all of that makes sense. I am not going to get Delta lie flat every time I fly. I physically cannot. They cannot fit the size of the planes in my regional airport consistently. Can't have it. I don't fly cross country often enough to where I would have it anyway, even if I was flying out of LaGuardia or JFK all the time. So that standard isn't reasonable for me. First class for me as a person in my mid-30s, heading towards my late 30s, that is a reasonable thing for me. That is something I am willing to pay for, and I pay for it. So that is where I think people need to work towards. Find your standard, move to the standard, figure out as you're moving towards that standard, maybe this isn't the actual standard I want, and then adjust accordingly.
It certainly makes sense. Craig.
So I similar to RJ, I am of the mindset that you build your setup to where you want to be, not where you are. But also, I think being realistic with that is also super important. For example, somebody that wants to go and do more travel, I'm not going to tell you go get the platinum, right? That is just not a great idea when you're telling me like, hey, yeah, I'm doing the credit cards. I just want to dip my toe because me and my partner want to go to Los Angeles for a weekend a year. You don't need a platinum for that. But what I will say is, I think credit cards are an exploratory tool. Fun fact, I don't particularly care for wine. I don't really drink much, but just got back from a trip in Napa, California, right? That was really cool. I can tell you, Cab or Cabernet Sauvignons, terrible. They taste like dirt. They're disgusting. Do not recommend. But I understand why people do it. It's a fancy, fun experience. But I think, it is okay to be aspirational in what you want to do in realistic terms within your life, right? Talking about how travel changes, I'm super duper heavy into credit cards. I may not be a min maxer despite RJ's best efforts to get me to liquidate a $20 credit using $8.37. Uh,
Yeah, that's how that conversation went, sir. Whatever you want to believe to look at yourself in the mirror.
I need all the copium. I don't have work travel, right? And the reason I was so heavily into these luxury cards was for work travel. I really don't need three cards that are going to give me lounge access now. So the Platinum, the Venture X, and the CSR are all on the chopping block, and whoever makes the best case is the one that gets to stick around. I'll keep my hotel cards because at this point, I'm probably not going to be traveling enough to actually earn high hotel status. And that's something that's important to me. I'm going to spend more time in a hotel than I am going to be on a plane. I think it's important to be realistic with yourself, but also realistic in the travel that you want to have. Because oftentimes we're so caught up. And again, let's say we are a niche and a niche and a niche, right? The next level down from us is true grifters, where you're getting into buying and selling clubs and you're trying to tell people, yeah, if you use this much margin, you can make this many points. And you're talking about an extra 4,000 points a year so you can buy gift cards. And it's just not great. But yeah, be realistic with yourself because everybody's in a different point in life. I live in a low cost part of the country. It's great, right? Like it is truly like nice to have the income to be able to live life. But also, living life doesn't mean that I need to be in a platinum Centurion lounge or a Delta Sky Club, excuse me. So I think it's important, but also realistic because if you're not, that's how we end up with $1 trillion in credit card debt. Now, granted, I also want to give the caveat to say some people are just out there trying to survive, and that is if it's the difference between eating and paying a credit card bill, I'm going to eat every single time, especially if it's for a survival situation. But if it's between, oh, I need to pay $795 for a credit card so I can possibly use a lounge 3 times a year or not, look at yourself and say, what is the necessity? So that's it for me.
Totally fair. Lonnie?
There we go. So I got to take the former approach versus the latter approach of I was traveling before I got into credit cards. So for me, credit cards was the enhancement where I realized I could be doing or getting so much more if I had credit cards. And I've mentioned this in many of my videos. I mentioned it here that my United Explorer card was the first travel card that I've ever gotten. And it was after I was already flying on United a lot, already getting those miles. And I'm like, wait a sec, man. Why is it I'm always like in group three? Or why is it that I'm always at the bottom of the upgrade list? Like, and then I realized like having the card brought in those experiences where now you're group two, now you're group one, now you're pre-boarding. Now you're not number 10 on the upgrade list or 15 on the upgrade list. Now you're number 8. Now you're number 5. Wait a sec. Now you're number 2. And then it was you got upgraded. I'm like, wait, I don't fly till tomorrow. And now I'm at, hey, you got upgraded. And I'm like, my flight's not for 5 days type of scenario. And so after that's when I got deeper into credit cards because actually, believe it or not, right after that, the next card that I got was my CSR. That's why I've had it for so long. And I was actually skeptical about it because I'm like, as I mentioned earlier, man, that's a $450 annual fee. I don't want to pay $450 for it. They also give me 100,000 UR points. And I'm like, look, if this thing fails, at least I can transfer all 100,000 of these points out to United or cash them out for $1,000 and be done with it. So I was like, I got a really good safety net here. But it was until after having that card where once again, I'm like, now I got this perk, or now I got that perk, or now I'm earning points here and I'm earning points there. I'm getting discounts on Lyft. I'm getting all these other things where I'm like, yeah, these are actually an enhancement to my experiences. And that's why I always say that they are an enhancement to an experience, not just they can also be a tool or a resource, depending on perspective, Craig had mentioned. But I won't necessarily say it changed my travel habits. It made me more bougie with my travel habits. I don't book a studio room expecting it when I check in to get a studio room. I'm that bougie of a person where I'm like, hey, I'm here. Where's my upgrade? What do you mean I'm only getting what I paid for? Like I booked the cheap room so I didn't have to stay in it. I'm literally that guy now where I'm so used to it that I almost feel entitled because of my credit cards and the experiences and the loyalty and everything. So there's rhyme to the reason, a method to the madness. But I say all that because I'm not going to necessarily say that the credit cards changed my travel habits. I didn't change because of the cards. My travel experiences changed because of the cards, and I've came accustomed to those and to continue enhancing those. And brand new, like literally 12 months in on hotel cards, and I already have 3 of them. Where I'm like, I already had the hotels that I wanted. I already had the hotel experiences that I wanted. But going back to like the status with United, I didn't have the status. I don't stay, even with work travel, I don't stay enough in hotels where make an impact on me getting status whatsoever. And so by having the cards, now I have status and now those enhancements come into play. That plus a lot of loyalty, of course, because people are very loyal to those that are loyal to them. So do I got to say it, RJ? Can we just put it like on screen to say pick your partners? Just pick your partners, y'all. Just makes everything so easy. Just pick some partners. How has my travel evolved or not since getting into credit cards and points and miles? Like I said, I just became more bougie. I became more comfortable. I'm not going to go say I hit full Karen mode, but have I become slightly entitled? Yeah. United, if I'm a 1K member, I bet you better treat me like a 1K member. I would say that's a level of entitlement. Even though I might not stay 40 nights at Marriott, look, I'm a platinum member. Hey, I might not stay 40 nights at a Hilton. Hey, I'm a diamond member. So treat me like a diamond member. So there is a small, at the bottom of the barrel level of entitlement. I'm going to admit to that. But at the same time, like I said, I like a room with her. And RJ knows that. And these have enhanced me being able to get into those types of room and establishment and sitting closer to the front of the bus.
No, that definitely makes sense. For me, my travel habits, I wouldn't say that they have significantly changed, but there are things that I do now because of points and miles. I'm more willing to do rideshare because I get more points out of rideshare, and willing to rideshare around cities that I don't know. Because if you don't know the traffic patterns in New Orleans, Louisiana, it's probably not a good idea to be driving that after taking a flight first thing in the morning. Probably not the best idea. I've added in rideshare. I will also rent from time to time, which I was doing before, but yeah, I now will start my bookings with points, and then if I want to upgrade, now it's cheaper for me to upgrade and not have to worry about paying full freight for sitting at the front of the plane, as opposed to having to pay the full $600-700 based on where before I had to, where I'd started $600 or $700. Now I could book for 10, 15,000 points and then pay for an upgrade. And that upgrade is what? On JetBlue, anywhere from like $40 to $100, depending on what flight I'm taking, what time of day I'm taking that flight, because it's all dynamic with JetBlue. But other airlines would probably have a more static approach to it, where I redeem points for not terrible seat, but I can then pay to move up to a better seat. So that aspect of things has evolved for me, where I'm now thinking about how I can improve my travel day. Before getting into credit cards, like I'd never really considered a lounge or a space away from the airport. It was always, I'm stuck with this overpriced food from this vendor, looking around, what are my best options? There's really overpriced Starbucks. There's a really overpriced Philly cheesesteak place. There's super overpriced McDonald's. But now with a lounge, should a lounge be available to me and I have the ability to go into the lounge before my flight, I can go in, I can grab a couple of things before my flight and not have to worry about paying the exorbitant fee that is everything at the airport. Not true at JFK's Terminal 5 because JetBlue still hasn't opened their JetBlue lounge, and I'm probably never going to be able to set foot in there because of the terribleness that is the JetBlue Premier card. But have added a thing to my arsenal that can make my travel day a little bit better. Pre-check global entry. I never would have thought to pay for that before credit cards. So there are aspects of my travel that have evolved because of credit cards and the benefits that you get from credit cards. Do I still travel the same way? I try to. There are definitely aspects of things that have changed where I am willing to do the newer thing because the newer thing is better. The newer thing is easier. And, I'll rack up more points by, doing a ride share versus booking a rental car. Or I don't necessarily want to use a rental car in an area that I'm not super familiar with that I'm only going to be in for 2 or 3 days. I can just ride share everywhere. Those aspects of things have definitely evolved, but I will still try to book as best value as I can overall. How that value translates for me is not going to be how that value translates for you, but that is the beauty of the points and miles game. Thank you very much, all. We're going to move over to our news roundup and topics. News, I mentioned last week that there was going to be U.S. bank news. There was rumors. We're going to punt on that a little bit further. I want to see more out of the altitude reserve changes. They have become official, but we're going to wait for more announcements there.